The cherry blossom petals fell like snow around his shoulders, and I knew this was my last chance. My hands trembled as I lowered my camera. In exactly 90 minutes, Yoon Hajoon would walk down that aisle and marry Lee Yeonmi. In 90 minutes, whatever fragile thread connected us would snap forever. The thought made my chest feel like it was caving in. I shouldn't be doing this. God, I really shouldn't be doing this. But my feet were already moving across the stone courtyard of the Grand Hyatt Seoul, carrying me toward the man who'd consumed my thoughts for 3 months. He stood alone beneath the cherry trees, his back to me, one hand in his pocket as he gazed up at the spring sky. Even from behind, he was devastating, broad shoulders in that perfectly tailored charcoal suit, dark hair styled just slightly tousled, the kind of elegant stillness that made my photographer's eye ache. "Hajoon-sai," I called out, my voice barely steady. He turned and my breath caught. The morning light hit his face at an angle that made him look almost ethereal. Those deep brown eyes found mine, and for a heartbeat, the entire world condensed to just the two of us in this garden. This was insane. Professionally suicidal. I was the wedding photographer. He was the groom. In my 5 years of shooting weddings, I'd never, not once, crossed this line. But I'd also never felt like this. Minho SSI. His voice was softer than I expected, curious. "Shouldn't you be setting up the ceremony shots?" "I should be," I admitted, taking another step closer. My camera felt heavy around my neck, a witness to my confession. "But I need to tell you something first. Before it's too late." Something flickered across his face. Surprise? Concern? I couldn't read it. "I know this is terrible timing," I continued, the words spilling out faster now, desperate. "I know you're getting married in less than 2 hours. I know this could ruin everything. But I can't let you walk down that aisle without saying this." He took a step toward me. Then another. Close enough now that I could see the gold flecks in his irises, could smell his cologne, something woody and warm that I'd memorized during all those late-night planning sessions. "Miho-ya." The informal address made my heart stutter. He'd never called me that before. "I've fallen in love with you," I said, the words finally breaking free. These past 3 months, all those nights at the coffee shop, talking about everything and nothing until 2 a.m. The way you listen to me, really listen. The way you see the world in layers and meanings that most people miss. How you make me laugh with the most unexpected observations. How you understood why I chose photography over my parents' dreams of me becoming a doctor. I was rambling now, couldn't stop. "I know you're marrying her. I know this is your wedding day. But I couldn't let you go without knowing that someone sees you, really sees you, and thinks you're extraordinary." The silence that followed felt like falling. He stared at me, lips slightly parted, eyes wide with something I desperately wanted to believe was reciprocation. The cherry blossoms continued their gentle descent around us, a few petals catching in his hair. Then he stepped even closer. So close I could feel the warmth radiating from him. So close that if I just leaned forward slightly, our lips would touch. "Miho-ya," he whispered again, and this time his voice was rough with emotion. "Seojin, there you are." The shout shattered the moment like glass. A woman in a bridesmaid dress was hurrying across the courtyard, waving frantically. "We've been looking everywhere for you. Your brother needs you for photos with the family." I froze. Your brother? The man in front of me, the man I just poured my heart out to, closed his eyes briefly, a small, almost apologetic smile playing at his lips. When he opened them again, there was warmth there, yes, but also something else. Amusement? Regret? "I'm not Hajoon," he said quietly, just for me. "I'm Yoon Seojin, his twin brother." The world tilted sideways. "What?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "I just arrived from Busan this morning. Late flight." He glanced down at himself, gesturing vaguely. "Still in my traveling suit. Haven't even checked into my hotel room yet." I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My face was burning so hot I thought I might actually combust right there in the cherry blossom garden. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I thought, I didn't, I stammered, wanting desperately for the ground to open up and swallow me whole. But Seojin, not Hajoon, just laughed. A bright, genuine sound that seemed to light up his entire face in a way I'd never seen before. "Don't be sorry," he said, and there was something in his expression that made my racing heart skip for an entirely different reason. "That's actually the most interesting thing that's happened to me in months." He tilted his head, studying me with an intensity that felt both familiar and completely new. "Though I have to ask." His smile turned curious, almost playful. "What exactly did my brother do to make you fall for him like that?" Before I could formulate any kind of response, before I could process what was happening, another voice cut through the morning air. "Seojin, there you are." I turned to see another man approaching. Same height, same build, same face. But everything else was different. This man's suit was pristine, not a wrinkle in sight. His hair was styled with precision. His expression was cool, collected, professional. This was Yoon Hajoon. The real Yoon Hajoon. And looking at him now, seeing them side by side, I realized something that made my stomach drop. I'd never met this man before in my life. I couldn't look away from them, two identical faces, yet somehow completely different. Hajoon's eyes swept over the scene. His twin brother standing too close to me, cherry blossoms in both our hair, my face still flushed from my confession. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Seojin, we need you for family photos," Hajoon said, his voice clipped and professional. Then his gaze shifted to me. "Minho Seojin, the bride's mother has been looking for you." Something about the lighting in the bridal suite. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a dismissal. "Of course. I'll go now," I stammered, practically tripping over my own feet as I backed away. My camera banged against my chest, a painful reminder of why I was here. Not as a lovesick fool, but as a professional. As I hurried toward the hotel entrance, I glanced back once. Seojin was watching me, an unreadable expression on his face. Hajoon had already turned away. The next 2 hours passed in a nightmarish blur. I photographed the bride's preparations, my hands somehow steady even as my mind spiraled. Every click of the shutter echoed the same question. How did I not know he had a twin? "Because you never asked," a cruel voice in my head answered. "Because you were so infatuated with those late-night conversations that you never bothered to learn basic facts about his life." But wait, those conversations? My hands stilled on my camera. Hajoon had told me about his childhood in Busan, about his parents' traditional hanok in Bucheon, about his complicated relationship with his family's expectations. He'd shared his love for abstract art, his dream of opening a gallery, his belief that beauty existed in imperfection. Except, I looked across the venue at Hajoon now, standing rigid and formal beside his bride. Nothing about him suggested an interest in abstract art or philosophical discussions about imperfection. Minho Seojin. Park Dae-hoon, the wedding planner, appeared beside me. "We're starting the procession in 10 minutes. Are you ready?" "Yes," I lied, lifting my camera. "Ready." The ceremony was perfect. Objectively, artistically perfect. The lighting, the angles, the emotions captured. This would be one of my best portfolios. But I felt like I was drowning. Through my viewfinder, I tracked Hajoon and Yeonmi's practice smiles, their choreographed kiss, their elegant first dance. And on the periphery of every shot, there was Seojin. Sometimes in the background, sometimes carefully cropped out, but always there. Always watching. Not the bride and groom, I realized with a jolt. Watching me. During the reception, I escaped to the bar. I needed a drink. Or 5. Club soda with lime, I told the bartender miserably. I was still working. Still had 3 more hours of this torture. "Make that 2, a familiar voice said beside me. I didn't need to look to know it was Seojin. My entire body had apparently developed a radar for his presence. He slid onto the stool next to mine, loosening his tie with a sigh. Up close like this, I could see the differences more clearly. Hajoon's tie had stayed perfectly knotted all day. Seojin's hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. And his eyes, God, his eyes were so much more expressive. "You've been avoiding me," he said conversationally. "I've been working." You've been hiding behind your camera. He accepted his drink from the bartender, his fingers brushing mine as he reached for it. The touch sent electricity up my arm. And I understand why. But Minho-ya, I need to tell you something. Please don't, I said quickly. I'm already mortified enough. My brother mentioned you, Seojin continued as if I hadn't spoken. About a month ago. Said his wedding photographer was talented but too chatty. That's when I knew he was an idiot. I finally turned to look at him. What do you mean? His expression was serious now, intense. The man you fell in love with, those late-night conversations at the coffee shop in Yeonam-dong? That wasn't Hajoon, Minho-ya. That was me. The world stopped spinning. What? I was in Seoul for a gallery exhibition at the Kukya Gallery, he explained, his voice soft. 3 months ago. I kept running into you at that 24-hour coffee shop near your studio. You were always there late, editing photos on your laptop. I was there working on exhibition proposals. My mind raced back. Those conversations. The way he'd lean over to look at my screen, offering thoughtful insights. The way we'd talk until the sun came up about art, about finding your path, about choosing passion over security. I thought you were Hajoon, I whispered. And I thought you knew I wasn't. Seojin's smile was sad now. When you called me Ahadisai, I assumed it was a joke between us. Like a nickname, because we'd gotten comfortable enough to tease each other. I thought. He trailed off, looking away. I thought maybe you felt what I was feeling. Which was? He met my eyes again, and the vulnerability there took my breath away. That I'd found someone who understood me. Someone who saw the world the way I did. Someone who made 2 a.m. feel like the best time of day because that's when we could talk without the rest of the world interrupting. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. Seojin, I went back to Busan thinking about you constantly, he continued. Wondering if I'd imagined the connection between us. Hajoon mentioned his photographer a few times, always complaining that you talked too much during planning sessions, and I never put it together. I never realized you thought those conversations were with him. But he was engaged, I said, trying to make sense of it all. Why would I think? Because you saw Yoon Hajoon on the contract. Because when we met at that coffee shop, I probably mentioned my brother's wedding and you assumed. Seojin shook his head. This is such a mess. The confession this morning, I said slowly. When I said all those things, you were describing our time together. Every word of it. His hand moved closer to mine on the bar, not quite touching. That confession wasn't for Hajoon, Minho-ya. It was always meant for me. You just didn't know it yet. The air between us felt charged, electric. I don't know what to do with this, I admitted. Seojin smiled, that warm, genuine smile that I'd been seeing all day and mistaking for something else. How about we start over? Properly this time, with the right name attached. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then showed me the screen. A new contact, Yoon Seojin, the right twin. Despite everything, I laughed. That's terrible. But accurate. He pressed save, then looked at me with hope in his eyes. What do you say, Minho-ya? Coffee tomorrow? I promised to introduce myself correctly this time. I should have said no. Should have taken time to process. Should have been professional. Instead, I found myself smiling back. Tomorrow. The coffee shop in Yeonam-dong. 10 p.m.? It's a date, Seojin said softly. And for the first time all day, something felt right. The coffee shop looked different at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday than it had during Hajoon's, no, Seojin's, wedding 2 weeks ago. Softer somehow. More intimate. Or maybe that was just because I knew who I was meeting this time. I'd arrived 15 minutes early, claiming my usual corner table by the window. My laptop sat open in front of me, a half-edited wedding gallery on the screen, but I hadn't touched it in 10 minutes. Instead, I kept glancing at the door, my heart doing this stupid flutter thing every time it opened. When Seojin finally walked in, the flutter became a full earthquake. He was dressed casually tonight, dark jeans, a cream-colored sweater, hair unstyled and falling slightly into his eyes. So different from the formal twin I'd seen at the wedding. So different from Hajoon's perpetual polish. So perfectly him. Our eyes met across the coffee shop, and his face broke into that smile. The one I was learning belonged only to me. "Mihoya," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "You're early." "You're late," I countered, even though he was right on time. Nervous. He flagged down the server, ordered an Americano without looking at the menu. He remembered this place. Terrified, I admitted honestly. His expression softened. "Me too." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between us. Finally, Seojin reached across the table, his fingers gently closing my laptop. "Let's start over," he said. "For real this time. Hi, I'm Yoon Seojin. I'm 30 years old, I run an art gallery in Samcheongdong, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since you confessed your feelings to my brother at his wedding." Despite my nerves, I laughed. That's a terrible introduction. But honest. His smile turned slightly vulnerable. "Your turn." I took a breath. "Hi, I'm Kang Minho. I'm 28, I'm a wedding photographer who apparently can't tell twins apart, and I paused, gathering courage. "And I've been replaying every conversation we had, realizing they were all with you, and somehow that makes everything feel more real." "More real how?" "Because the person I fell for actually exists," I said quietly. "I was in love with a fantasy version of Hajoon, someone who didn't exist. But you're real." Those conversations were real. Seojin's hand moved across the table, his fingers intertwining with mine. The touch was warm, grounding. They were the most real thing in my life for weeks. "Do you know how many times I almost asked for your number? But I thought we had an understanding that we were taking things slow. And then you went back to Busan. And spent 2 months wondering if I'd imagined everything." His thumb traced circles on my palm, sending shivers up my arm. "When Hajoon mentioned his chatty photographer, I never connected it to you. He made you sound annoying. But the person I met at this coffee shop? You were anything but annoying." "What was I?" I asked, needing to hear it. "Captivating," he said simply. "Brilliant. Someone who saw the world in frames and moments. Someone who understood that the space between things is just as important as the things themselves." My chest felt tight. "That's what you said that first night? About your gallery philosophy. Finding beauty in the negative space." Seojin smiled. "You got it immediately. Started showing me photos where the subject wasn't even in focus, where the real story was in the blur, the background, the almost moment." "I remember," I whispered. "You said I was seeing what most people miss." "Because you were. You are." His hand tightened on mine. "Mihoya, I know this is complicated. I know the circumstances are weird. But I meant what I said at the wedding. That confession wasn't for Hajoon, it was for me. Every word of it." "Show me," I said suddenly. "What?" I stood up, pulling him with me. "Your gallery. You've told me about it 100 times, but I've never seen it. Show me." The gallery was a converted hanok in Samcheongdong, traditional architecture meeting contemporary art in a way that felt both jarring and perfect. Seojin unlocked the door, flipping on soft overhead lights that made the space glow. "This is it," he said, suddenly shy. "My everything." I walked slowly through the space, my photographer's eye drinking in every detail. Abstract paintings hung on white walls, sculptures positioned in corners where traditional furniture would have been. Everything was curated with care, with intention. "This piece," Seojin said, stopping in front of a large canvas, swirls of blue and gray that somehow felt like heartbreak and hope simultaneously. "This is what I meant when I talked to you about finding beauty in imperfection. The artist painted this during the worst period of her life, but look," he traced a finger near the canvas, not quite touching. "See how the chaos resolves into something almost peaceful?" I did see it. And I saw him, truly saw him, maybe for the first time. "You thought I was talking about wedding photography," he continued. "About capturing perfect moments. But I was talking about this. About art that doesn't apologize for being messy." "Hajoon would never understand this," I said quietly. "No. He wouldn't." Seojin turned to face me. My brother sees the world in straight lines and achievable goals. He's not a bad person, but he's conventional. Everything our parents wanted. And you're not. I'm the disappointment, he said without bitterness. The twin who chose art over architecture, Busan over soul, passion over pragmatism. I stepped closer, closing the distance between us. You're not a disappointment, Seojin. You're extraordinary. His breath hitched. Minho. That's what I meant in my confession, I continued. Every word. Except I was saying it to the right person all along. I just didn't know his name. And now? His hands found my waist, tentative. Now that you know? Now I want to fall in love with you properly, I whispered. With your real name. Your real face. Your real everything. You already started, he said, and then his lips were on mine. The kiss was soft at first, questioning. Then deeper, more certain. His hands pulled me closer, and I wound my arms around his neck, fingers tangling in his hair. He tasted like coffee and promise, like every late-night conversation we'd ever had distilled into this single moment. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Seojin pressed his forehead to mine. I'm falling too, he whispered. I've been falling since that first night you showed me your photos and talked about capturing moments between moments. Then let's fall together, I said. And we did. 3 weeks of falling felt like flying. Seojin stayed in Seoul, extending his trip indefinitely. My assistant can handle the Busan gallery, he'd said, kissing me in my tiny studio apartment in Yeonnam-dong. I have more important things here. We were insatiable for each other, not just physically, though God, that too, but for every scrap of information, every shared moment. He'd visit my studio while I edited photos, bringing those butter pastries from the bakery on the corner. I'd spend evenings at his gallery, watching him discuss art with visitors, falling a little more in love each time he lit up talking about an artist's vision. It was perfect. Until it wasn't. We ran into them at a restaurant in Itaewon, Hajoon and Yeonmi, celebrating their 1-month anniversary. The moment Hajoon's eyes locked on us, on Seojin's hand resting casually on my lower back, I watched his expression transform from surprise to something cold and sharp. Seojin. Minho SSI. His voice was ice. What a surprise. Yeonmi looked between us, confused. I didn't know you two were friends? We're not friends, Seojin said quietly, his hand tightening protectively on my waist. We're together. The silence that followed was deafening. Together, Hajoon repeated, his jaw clenching. As in? As in dating. As in I'm his boyfriend. I lifted my chin, refusing to be ashamed. Is that a problem? Hajoon's laugh was bitter. My office. Tomorrow. 2 p.m., he said to Sing, ignoring me completely. Then he turned and walked away, Yeonmi hurrying after him with apologetic glances back. Seojin's entire body had gone rigid beside me. That went well, he said, but his voice was shaking. I didn't hear from Seojin until late the next afternoon. When he finally showed up at my studio, he looked wrecked, hair disheveled, eyes red-rimmed, still in the same clothes from this morning. Baby, what happened? I pulled him inside, guiding him to my worn couch. He hates me, Seojin said flatly. Or hates us. I'm not sure which. Tell me everything. The story spilled out in broken fragments. Hajoon had been furious. Not just angry but furious in a way Seojin had rarely seen. He'd accused Seojin of taking advantage of a confused situation, of using Minho's misdirected feelings to manipulate me into a relationship. He'd called it inappropriate, disrespectful to his marriage, a betrayal of brotherly boundaries. He said I'm doing this to compete with him, Seojin finished miserably. That I've always been jealous of his success, and now I'm trying to steal something he could have had. But he never wanted me, I said, anger flaring hot in my chest. He was never interested. That's what I told him. But Hajoon. Seojin's hands were shaking as he ran them through his hair. We've been compared our whole lives, Minho. Same face, different choices. He's the golden child, successful architect, perfect marriage, everything our parents dreamed of. I'm the disappointment who ran away to Busan to play with art. You're not a disappointment. To them I am. And now this, me dating someone who confessed feelings for him first, it's like confirming everything he's ever thought about me. That I'm always trying to take what's his. I cupped his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. Seojin, listen to me. You didn't take anything. I was never Hajoon's. Those feelings I had? They were based on conversations with you. The person I fell in love with is sitting right here. But he doesn't see it that way. Then we make him see it, I said firmly. We talk to him. Together. We make him understand. Seojin looked at me like I'd suggested we fly to the moon. You want to confront my brother? After what he said? I want to fight for us, I corrected. Don't you? His eyes searched mine, and slowly, something shifted in his expression. But maybe. Or determination. You'd really do that? Seojin, I'd do anything for you. Even face down your terrifying brother and explain exactly how wrong he is. For the first time since he'd arrived, Seojin smiled. He is pretty terrifying when he's angry. Good thing I'm scarier when I'm in love. 3 days later, we sat in the formal living room of the Yoon family hanok in Bucheon. Traditional floor cushions, ancient wooden beams, the weight of family history pressing down on us. Hajoon sat across from us, still radiating cold disapproval. I'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times. But now, faced with Hajoon's identical features arranged in such different expressions than Seojin's, the words almost failed me. Almost. Hajoon SSI, I started, keeping my voice steady. I need you to understand something. I never knew you. Not really. His eyebrow arched skeptically. Those late-night conversations I treasured? Those were with Seojin. The person who listened to my dreams about leaving commercial photography to do art documentation, that was Seojin. The person who understood why I chose this unstable, impractical career over my parents' wishes, Seojin. The person who made me laugh until 2 a.m., who saw the world in layers and meanings, who made me feel like being myself was enough, that was always Seojin. You said my name, Hajoon interrupted coldly. At my wedding. Because I thought he was you, I said. But I fell in love with Seojin. His soul, his words, his heart, his mind. The name didn't matter. The person did. I reached for Seojin's hand, squeezing tight. And when I found out the truth, I didn't fall out of love. I fell deeper. Because the man I'd been talking to was real, not some fantasy I'd projected onto you. Seojin added quietly, Hyung, I know how this looks. But I'm not trying to take anything from you. For once in our lives, this isn't about competition or comparison. Minho chose me, the real me. My messy art and impossible dreams and all the parts of me that disappoint our parents. Can't you be happy for us? The silence stretched unbearably long. I watched emotions flicker across Hajoon's face. Anger, confusion, something that might have been hurt. Finally, he sighed, his shoulders dropping. I was never interested in you romantically, Minho SSI. You know that, right? I do now. I was just being professional. Polite. The conversations you remember were probably mostly you talking and me responding minimally because I was focused on wedding planning. He looked at Seojin. But my ego was bruised. Someone confused us and chose you. It felt like even when someone made a mistake, you still came out ahead. That's not fair, Seojin said softly. I know. Hajoon's expression finally softened, just slightly. I know it's not. You've spent your whole life in my shadow, trying to prove you're different. And maybe I've spent mine trying to prove I'm better. Neither of us wins that way. I held my breath, afraid to hope. I don't have to like this, Hajoon continued. It's weird and uncomfortable and I'm not ready to have double dates or whatever. But, he looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. You chose him. The real him. Not the successful architect or the perfect son. Just Seojin. Just Seojin, I agreed, is everything. Ori absolutely fragile. As we left the hanok, Seojin pulled me into his arms right there on the street, pressing his face into my neck. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for fighting for us. Always, I promised. For as long as you'll have me. That's going to be a very long time, Miho-ya. And I believed him.